What's up, everybody? Welcome to another summer edition of Morning Cuppa Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code DAILY365. That's Colby, Cohen. I'm Jonny, Lazarus, and we are getting closer and closer to the NHL season. As you can tell right now, my voice is a little shot. I'm not
I was
in
just
my
gonna
normal
say, you
setup.
sound like absolute shit. What did you do last night?
It's 6 a.m. Vegas time. I'm in Vegas. I didn't really do anything last night. I went to dinner, but I had a long day.
Where'd you go to dinner?
Blue Ribbon Sushi. Actually, my first time
in
ever
the
going there.
Cosmo? In the Cosmo?
No. I'm out in Summerlin by the Vegas Golden Knights practice rink.
But they have a Blue Ribbon out there too.
Yeah, they have one in the Red Rock Casino, but I had never had it before, and it was really fucking good.
They've got a Blue Ribbon in LA. I think they have one in New York I've been to, and they have one in New York. They also have one, I think, at the Cosmo as well, on the Strip. So they're that's a popular spot.
Yeah, but I'm honestly just exhausted. It's 6 a.m.
Who'd you go to dinner with last night?
The BR Open Ice team that I work with. So I'm in Vegas right now for the Player Media Tour. So, for those who don't know, each team sends one representative to do, basically a media car wash, film like commercial hype videos for TNT, ESPN, Sportsnet for when those teams play on those networks throughout the season. And, I'm doing all of my like lap around the ice skating interviews for the season. I'll do more as the year goes on.
Let me ask you a question. When you're doing your lap around the ice skating videos, do you say to them, I want to ask you a fun one?
Honestly, sometimes, depending on the person. It's funny. Like the guys I know that I do them with are so funny. Like I did one with Jack Hughes, Shane Pinto. I mean, Shane. Shane. Like Shane is the funniest guy of all time. This is his first media day, so it was fun seeing him go through it. And there are guys like Macklin Celebrini here doing it for the first time.
Do you think Pinto's hitting the sports book while he's there or no?
No, I don't think so. But it was funny actually. Shane, Vinny Trocheck, and Suzuki were on the ice together when the Jets game started. And Shane's a huge Jets fan, and Vinny, I guess cares about the Jets too. And Suzuki had like a fantasy football lineup or something with that game. So like as they were sitting around waiting to do their next thing, we had the Jets game pulled up on a phone, like on the bench, and we were just kind of like sitting there watching it together. But no, it was cool. It's cool when the guys come over and like talk to me like in between their like little things. Like I actually had a really nice conversation with John Carlson, who I brought your name up to. Yeah.
He's a solid guy. We don't know, like
he said you guys don't like really know each other,
exactly.
But crossover.
We know, like we've crossed paths a bunch of times. We were I think he's a 90 birth year. I think he's a year younger.
89, I think.
He is an 89. Okay. So
yeah.
But he's like somewhat local to this area. And like I said, I've only ever heard like people rave about him as a guy. Like I'm sure he didn't say that about me, but I could say that about him. I've heard really good things about him, so I'm glad. He is born in 90, so that's all right. It's early in the morning in Vegas. I shifted this 30 minutes earlier, so I'll take a little heat just to give everybody an idea before Jonny finishes his Carlson story.
No, that's good. I'm done.
It is. We are doing this episode on September 10th, Tuesday. This will be released on Tuesday, September 11th. But the interview part of today's show we did last week with Colin Wilson. We knocked out a couple of interviews last week. We talked to we talked to Colin Wilson. We already did Sam Rosen. That episode was amazing. Like one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. And then on Friday of last week, we talked with Tony Granato for an hour, probably. Like he stayed on with us for maybe more than an hour.
Yeah.
That episode is going to come out. So tomorrow being Tuesday, the 11th.
Wednesday.
Excuse me. Wednesday, September the 11th is tomorrow. But on Wednesday, September the 18th, the Tony Granato episode will drop. And I'm not sure if we'll have an open to that show. You may do one solo, I think you've talked about, because I'm going to be away. My wife and I are going on a little vacation. So just to put some dates and times around when you're hearing us, because you're going to see us talk to Colin shortly, and we're not going to be wearing the same outfits. People are going to be like, what's going on or whatever, if you are, a YouTube person. So, and something we haven't asked you guys in a while, And I think we brought a new audience in with the Sam Rosen interview last week. If you are enjoying the show, give us a like, give us a subscribe. You guys are awesome about that. Our growth last year of our show was great. It allowed us to come back for another year, made our contract negotiation easy with the network, all that stuff. That's all because people are listening, commenting, liking, subscribing in the chat, all that stuff. So that's what's going on. We've got only a couple more of these because we're starting live October 1, which is a Tuesday. So we're like 20 something days away from our first live show. Get the chat back involved. And we'll obviously talk about that more. But so we got that's what we have going on, Johnny. And there has been some news on top of the fact that we're 10 days away from the first preseason game when this show airs. As of today, it's 11, but when this show comes out, you're 10 days from a preseason game, which is kind of hard to imagine because training camps haven't even opened yet.
Yeah, training camps, I think, are the 19th they start, I'm pretty sure, for most teams. I think that's the Rangers start date, at least. I'm going to miss the first couple days of training camp this year, which sucks because I'll be playing in the Chicklets Cup, which is like a fun reason to miss it. But yeah, it doesn't – I don't know why hockey season, this summer has felt a little just weird with the lack of news. Like and obviously everything that's happened lately, it's tough to, get super excited for it right now. But once players are in training camp, all the players basically right now are in their respective cities doing captain's practices. That's what a lot of guys were saying yesterday. They're flying back to, Washington, D.C., Buffalo, wherever they play. And they're all skating together right now, which is cool. But yeah, we're not too far away. And for those who are new listeners, yes, Colby and I are live Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. And we do have a live chat, so you can, have your voice be heard. We answer a lot of our chat's questions, which is something that I really love doing. I know I've talked to some people and have DM'd with some people that listen to our show throughout the summer, and I know I can't wait to hear their comments again, and especially Shit on Islanders fans. Excited for that. But yeah, you want to talk about Sidney Crosby and his possible extension before the season starts?
I think there's a couple of little nuggets that have come out over the last couple of days. I think Sidney Crosby, and there's a lot of optimism that he'll have a deal actually sometime in the next 10 days. Which again, I look, I get you have to do it, and the guy is still playing like a Hall of Famer. Like his game has not dropped off, but
40 goals last year.
It's that's what I mean. He's as good as he's ever been, but it's not enough, right? And that team is so much closer to a teardown rebuild than another Stanley Cup. So it's a hard decision, but obviously for him, it's not a hard decision. He wants to be a Penguin for life. You don't see that happening anymore. We've seen Patrick Kane now play for a number of teams. Like Jonathan Toews is going to be a one team guy, but his career is a little shorter. But look, I personally would rather see Sidney Crosby go win another cup somewhere else. If Tom Brady could leave New England, Sidney Crosby can leave Pittsburgh. I mean, that's just the best way I can.
That's a good way. No, that's a good way to put it. I forgot who I was talking to. I feel like it was someone here, but not someone who not a player or anything, but someone mentioned Crosby getting traded, for basically a haul to send back to Pittsburgh, and then in the last year of his new contract, getting traded back to Pittsburgh.
Listen, people say that about Patrick Kane. People that's the dream. Who knows? You know what I mean?
But that's not. You're saying that's not realistic.
It's not that it's not realistic, but it's so circumstantial. It really is. Stars really got to line up for that type of stuff to happen. It really does.
But also, if Sidney Crosby's asking for a trade, no one's going to say no to him.
Yeah, I understand that, but you don't know what the cap situation is going to be like. You don't know what people's at. Teams do have business to run, and rarely do players get put in front of business. So, look, we'll keep an eye on that. I'm sure we'll have that to talk about before the regular season starts. And then we can debate it left and right, depending on the length of the deal, the dollars. We'll actually have something to react to. The other one that was interesting was the discourse and the comments about Mitch Marner. And, the fact that I think at this point, we all know Mitch Marner is going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf this year. It's not happening. This whole Vegas trade, whatever, and I've been saying this all summer, and, Frank and I are going to probably we're going to go at it a little bit about this because I'm going to be calling him out. I'm going to wait for his first live show back with us, but I'm definitely going to give him shit about, how he jumped all over me and told me I was crazy and this was an easy trade and this and that. Cause he did. And
he said 95%, right? 95% chance it happens.
My whole thing was, this is a very complex transition when you add in all the factors surrounding it. And he basically told me I was crazy and it's not. And, look, I give Frank a lot of credit because in order to do what he does, you have to have a strong opinion about things. You can't sit on fences, but this is one where I had a very strong opinion one way, he had a very strong opinion another way, and it's certainly playing out in my favor. So I did think those comments by Dreger were interesting. It sounds like they're not close to an extension, but they all know they have to get an extension done for him. Because what happens, this is a playoff team easily, right? You almost think maybe it's the Leafs year. It's never actually going to happen with this group that they have, but you can't let the guy walk into free agency. You can't lose him for nothing. So the trade deadline is going to be insane in Toronto if he doesn't have a contract extension. And so they're going to have, come Halloween, Thanksgiving, the heat's going to get turned up in Toronto. We're going to be talking about it, as Darren Dreger said, hour by hour. That is going to be a massive story.
Yeah, and the Leafs just did extend Nick Robertson for 1 year. Not that that's
well, he wanted out. He wanted
not that that's the biggest news, but
I think that's a guy who has potential to be a really good player. He just, again, sometimes you see a guy go to a new situation and they take off. I think that's one of the situations. I think that's why Toronto is scared to trade him, because if they give him up for nothing, basically, he's going to go make them look really dumb with another team. So that's a signing, not super significant, but I do think there's a domino effect there. Now that he's signed, you're not worried about an offer sheet. Now the Leafs have other options. I've heard Max Pacioretty's name quite a few times, a couple of other veterans they may be looking at. Now that he's locked up, they don't have to worry about offer sheets or anything. I bet you the Leafs still make one more signing before training camp opens. That's just my opinion based on, their situation, their needs, and things that I've heard coming out of Toronto.
Was Adam Larsson just made official? I think I just saw a tweet about that.
Yeah, well, Frank reported that last night, that he had a 4-year extension looming for $21 million. Frank had said they're in the $5 to $6 million range. He would have been a UFA. But look, I think that, again, wasn't Larsson traded for
Taylor Hall?
Larsson's been a part of some big transactions in the National Hockey League. He's a high draft choice. He's had some ups. He's had some downs. I never really fully understand what Seattle's doing, if I'm being honest. I never really understand it. They kind of go all over the map with their decision making. I didn't understand the coaching hire that they made. I just didn't. I find myself a little puzzled a lot of the decisions that come out of Seattle. But look, I'm not saying Larsson for that dollar amount is a bad contract or anything like that. I'm just yeah, all right. I look at that top four and I wonder what Montour is going to be like, not in Florida. It remains to be seen. I am a Vince Dunn fan. I think he brings a lot to the table.
Well, they have Larsson paired with Vince Dunn right now on Daily Faceoff. I think it's going to be Montour and Dunn, though, no? Wouldn't you think Montour would be the top pair defenseman over Larsson?
I don't know, because I just don't know who's going to play defense on that pair.
Yeah, Montour and Dunn are both a little bit offensive.
He does defend, but both of those guys are thinking primarily offensively. So I don't think that that's a pair that would be great defensively. I mean, not that you need them to be, but I think splitting them up is probably the better play. What's going to be interesting is who's going to get first power play minutes. They're a lefty-righty. So are you going to see two defensemen on an NHL first power play? You rarely see that in the National Hockey League. Rarely.
Right now, Daily Faceoff has Montour on the first unit and Vince Dunn on the second unit.
And that's been a thing since Giordano was there in the early day, right? And they had Vince Dunn on the second unit. And I know there's always been some infighting with management and Dave Haxtell when he was the coach about their usage of Vince Dunn. So, we'll see what happens there, Johnny. with Seattle, I don't expect them to be a playoff team this year. I don't know about you, but
I don't either.
we'll kind of save that for when we do our divisional previews, which we'll do the first couple of days of October, and we'll do them live.
Mhm.
I know we originally talked about doing them in September, but I like your idea of division previews live first couple of days of October. We'll get some beat
listeners to
writers.
chime in.
We'll get some beat writers involved that are covering training camps. We'll get 10, 15 minutes out of them. We'll hear what they're hearing, hear what they're saying. And every team is optimistic right now. Every team says the same thing. Teams are, they're not giving us enough credit. We feel really good about this group. It's a really close group. Guys worked hard in the summer. I mean, the robotic quotes that we'll be seeing here in the next 2 weeks in these media scrums and media days look the same. Almost from every single team, every single camp, other than like the heavy hitters that are going and expecting to win a Stanley Cup, right? So I think you might want to talk about a couple of jersey situations here, or we want to get to the Colin Wilson interview and then wrap up with some jersey conversation.
We'll save the jersey talk for after the interview with Colin Wilson, but I do want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, because this interview with Colin Wilson is brought to you by our friends over at Out West. So for a limited time, when you purchase any 3 of our premium polos, you'll get a 4th item of your choice from our entire site for free. Whether you're looking to upgrade your wardrobe with high quality, modern activewear, or stock up on essentials for your winter golf trip, now is the perfect time to shop and grab a free one on us. So visit outwestgolf.com today and take advantage of this exclusive offer. Out West, every game needs an outlaw, and use our code CUPPA. That's Cuppa in all caps at outwestgolf.com. Hope you all enjoy this interview with Colin Wilson. We're going to bring to the show now one of Colby's old friends. I'm already going to call him one of my new friends, just assuming that everything goes smoothly here. But welcome to the show, Colin Wilson, former 7th overall pick of the Nashville Predators. Really happy to have you on here this summer. What's going on?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on.
And not just an old friend, Jonny, one of my best friends, certainly a guy that I've spent a lot of time with, since we're, I guess, 16 years old. And we started a part of our hockey journey together with the U.S. national team and got to know each other starting there. And Colin, as we were kind of doing some prep work for this interview, the guys were asking me questions like, wait, why did he grow up in Winnipeg?
Yeah.
He played for Team USA. So I think a lot of people get confused by that. Obviously, I know why that is, but maybe you could kind of shed some light on like your childhood and why you lived where you did when you were born versus like where you grew up. And I guess that would probably bring up a couple members of your family.
Yeah. So got to be born in Greenwich, Connecticut, which I didn't know I was born there until I was 16 and went to the program because I thought I was born. My parents told me I was born in Manhattan or New York. And I said, what is Greenwich? Turns out I was born in Greenwich. My dad was playing for the Rangers. So I happened to be born here, but my whole family's from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So when my dad retired, when I was 3, I went back to Winnipeg, but was able to use the dual citizenship to play for the United States. And I mean, I was 8 years old with an email that said American guy _2. So I was taking a lot of pride in it. But yeah, so my grandfather also played in the NHL. So he played 2 games for Montreal before becoming the Winnipeg Jets surgeon later on. He had to retire due to knee injuries. But I speak on that because you said it would bring up family members. So I assumed I'd go into that as well.
I had no idea that about your grandfather, by the way.
I'm just stating right now?
Yeah, I knew he played in the National League, but I didn't know that he then became the team surgeon. That's wild.
He was the team surgeon, and there's a history. So he was he brought over the first Swedes to the NHL. He was doing a research project on fast twitch fibers in Sweden, and he saw Anders Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen playing. And he called up the Winnipeg Jets and was like, hey, you guys got to get these guys. So little history there.
Wait, so with the program then, how were you found or selected if you were living in Winnipeg or were you playing in the States?
My dad's old roommate who became my agent, Neil Sheehy, was like, hey, there's this program in Ann Arbor. He has dual citizenship. Let's go check it out. So I went and checked it out, and then they actually came and watched me try out for Team Canada. So while I was trying out for the Western team, they came and watched me, and I had a pretty good tryout, I guess. So got offered a spot, was pretty lucky in that.
No way. That's like, I mean, honestly, that's sick that you could have the choice to pick between Canada and the US. I mean, obviously, I would assume that's a tough decision to make, right?
No, it was very easy. I got, so I had gotten cut the year before from my team, and I will just say it was political. I was very good at when I was young. I had like, I got cut like midway through in the 2 exhibition games. I had 5 goals, 3 assists, and they were like, "Yeah, we just don't like your skating." So I was quite happy to get out of it. And I also knew I wanted to go college route, and I knew that this was the best exposure for me. And I just loved that it was an all around program, pretty good clout for my friends. Like, yeah, I'm playing for the U.S. national team. So I think around it was, easy decision actually.
And it's funny, Jonny, too, because you get to these programs and it's way worse or different even now, where everybody truly is already like best friends by the time you even get there. We didn't have social media back then, so like Colin was sort of a guy that like we were like, who is this guy? We're like, he's really good, but nobody had any idea who he was. You kind of at least had a general idea of who people were by that time, although there was no, I don't know if elite prospects existed back then. I have no idea if it did. I certainly wasn't using it at the time, but we were all kind of like, wait a sec, who is this guy that's like, Colin was a big dude. Like, he was big and strong, like bigger and stronger than most of us were at that point. Maybe Ian Cole was like the only guy that could probably keep up with you in the weight room when we got to the national team. So do you think, Willie, that your grandfather maybe or was the next guy that would come to mind would be like Jonathan Taves? He's one of your Winnipeg buddies that went the college route. Like, what was it about the college route that was interesting to you? Because it's not really been until recently where like an influx of that is happening. Before, it would be like one guy 1 year, maybe one guy a few years later. Like, Taves was a high end pick, then you were a high end pick. Now it's like a thing where all the some of the best number 1 picks, Canadian kids, are all coming over here, but you did it kind of early. So I'm just curious, like, how that came about and went into that decision. These are questions I've never asked you, by the way. So just so the audience knows this, like, these are not things that I even know the answers to. And I certainly consider you one of my best friends. I think you share the sentiment. You let me speak at your wedding, right? So
I was just going to say, you spoke at my wedding. Well, I mean, again, it comes down to my family. So my dad played at Dartmouth, so he really was a trendsetter. He went and played college in it would have been like the late 70s. So he took that route. And then at the same time, I mean, my grandfather became a surgeon. They obviously, as well as myself, took education very seriously. That's actually why I ended up going to Boston University and not North Dakota, is for those reasons. And actually like the Taves actually did call up my dad. My dad had a pretty large, it was like the hockey camp to be at that John was always in. So they called up my dad for some consulting on that decision. Not saying that he was the sole reason why, but yeah, for myself, it was a pretty easy decision. Also, I have 3 uncles, 2 of which played in junior hockey, and they just said how riding the bus isn't the best time ever. So I'd rather go take the college route.
Yeah, people love the bus memories. I was never a big bus guy. Like, any trip that was north of like 8 hours, I did not want to be on that fucking bus. Like, I was pissed about it.
There was no greater motivation. I made Nashville out of camp, and then I had to go to the minors after I got hurt. And riding the bus versus taking a private jet, I was like, I got to get back. I got to get back to the NHL.
I never got the private jet experience. I was talking about the North American League and going from Corpus Christi to that was my bus ride. But I'm curious what you're doing now, because I was trying to figure it out before. One of my friends in the city, I'm in New York, had said that they met you. I think it was like 3 months ago, and I forgot who it was. And I'm gonna figure it out after, and we'll put it together. But I know you're in New York City now, right? What are you up to?
Yeah, I'm in Jersey City, so
Jersey City.
15 minutes. Which you have to say that you're in New Jersey, but it's definitely an extension. Anyways, my wife who I met. She was living in Manhattan. I was retiring, so moved here. We were in Brooklyn at the time.
That's where I am now. Where in Brooklyn were you?
I was in Williamsburg.
Oh, that's where I live. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great place.
Yeah.
Very good place.
Mhm.
So ended up over here in Jersey City, a little more square footage, but actually I'm going to my first class in a couple hours of the semester at NYU. I'm getting my master's right now in global economics and data analytics. I was originally going to go the psychology route. That's why I went back to Boston University, but just kind of found more interest in, I don't know, policy, business, economics, just kind of the way it all works. So did a little bit of investing on myself, or some investing myself, got burned, and recognized I should probably get a degree.
So will I be seeing you walking around with a matcha in Soho at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on like a Thursday? Is that the kind of guy you are in New York City?
Yeah,
you got the hair for it.
Yeah. No matcha, but definitely, seeing me walking around there, Washington Square Park.
So let me ask you, with that degree, because this is something we've talked about, but what do you like do with something like that? Because like when you told me about that, I couldn't even wrap my head around like what that even meant. And then you explained it to me and I said, okay, like I can at least fathom what you're talking about, but like, where does that lead you? Because, you've had this unbelievable career, 11 years in the NHL, 650 or so regular season. Then there was playoff Willie, which we'll get into later. You played on some really good teams in some really good cities, and now you're not a hockey player anymore. Like you are a full-on student doing interesting things. You've written a couple articles, which again we'll get into. But where does that kind of take you and lead you into the next chapter in your life, Willie?
Still feeling it out. The trajectory could be venture capital. It could be going into, honestly, like national security, like doing more economic work around sanctions, something like that. But again, figuring that all out, it'll be one of those two general areas, I think, or I may end up doing nothing. Who knows? Maybe I'll just take care of my daughter all day and have a couple more kids, like we own a farm. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's those are the plans right now. But part of this is kind of learning what I want to do. But I think that after this, I'll have a better idea, but it probably will be one of those two areas.
And how many years of school is it?
It's a 2-year program, and I have a year left.
Oh, wow. Did you have a first day of school outfit picked out for today or what?
It's funny. I just got asked that, and I don't know. Typically, every day I end up going through what am I gonna wear. So got a few in mind.
Yeah.
See what I go with. It depends. How it's all looking.
What would you say the biggest difference is going to class now? And I don't mean your attention span or your interest levels, but like we went to college like 18 years ago or something like that. Now, when we were at BU, like what are the biggest differences between like, being on a college campus now as opposed to like when we were doing it 18 years ago in Boston?
Especially, when I did the undergrad degree, which I completed 2 years ago, I mean, at least I had the mask on, but I was like slightly insecure when I was next to an 18-year-old, and I'm like 31, and I'm like still, I don't know if I call it class pet, or I still like get involved a lot in class and give my opinion. So kind of,
Are you a kiss ass?
I certainly not necessarily a kiss ass. I just like get really interested and like want to ask a lot of questions and understand things. There is a little bit of validation, I'm sure, mixed in there.
Yeah.
So, but
Willie's
no,
like you didn't assign us homework. You forgot.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Actually, I had one of those last semester. But yeah, no, just that, and like you kind of said before, general interest, which I had until even at BU, I still had some interest, but I knew I was there mostly to become a professional hockey player, so I'd kind of given up on that slightly. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
I mean, I feel like NYU, though, it's probably easy for you to blend in. There are a lot of people who are older that still attend classes and stuff.
Yeah, no, it is a little bit easier. And so, yeah, I'm appreciative of that. Had a few people think I was younger than I was, so that was a big bonus. Told my wife, she told me not to let it get to my head, and that was, good day for me at least.
I guess if you shaved your beard, you could probably shave a few years off your life. But I mean, I remember taking classes at BU with guys who played at BU like 30 years prior. Like they were like older guys. I mean, those were night classes, so it's probably nothing to write home about. But I do remember this about you in college, Willie. You always had a very regimented schedule. Like if we had to have breakfast before 9 a.m., like you were at the dining hall before 9 a.m. You were not messing around with the schedule and how regimented you were. And kind of going back to that year and that time for you, something that I'm always curious about because it's different than my experience is like when you're a player at your caliber, like, you know, talked about as a guy who's a top 5 pick and that type of situation, you're playing on multiple world junior teams, you know, you go on to play world you know, basically all of the big ones, right? How difficult was it to be going through that, you know, at BU rather than going through it almost like with the rest of us, our U18 year, you know, just the different pressure that was on you, that was kind of just on you. Like all the spotlight that year was on you, right? There weren't other draft picks on our team that teams were looking at. Like how difficult is that for a guy that's being looked at that highly?
Yeah. I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think that sometimes that came off as, self-centered to a degree, but I don't know. I think honestly, I still look back to that year and like, I guess for a little bit of background, yeah, some people didn't take it very well on our team. But yeah, I was a guy who was like trying to help a team win, but also do, you know, well for myself. So I think it is interesting, yeah, versus other people who maybe even in juniors, people are quite accepting of, you know, we're trying to win, but everybody's trying to make it to the NHL. And I think when you get to a college program, you know, people take it as this is a, you know, we have to put the university first, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, it was an interesting adjustment with me and the team. I'm glad, you know, still had a really good year. The team didn't have a great year, but,
well, we sucked that year. We
did suck. Yeah, you
can't.
can't.
07, 08 that year the year before you guys won?
First year. Yep.
Yeah,
freshman year.
We tied, yeah, in the first, like, our first weekend, we, like, lost to Robert Morris and tied Alaska, whatever it was. It, like, messed up our pair rankings pretty bad. Yeah, so it wasn't a good start to the year.
Well, and I think part of the issue, too, was, like, you can't count on your freshman class to carry your team, you know, when you have a bunch of seniors and you know what I mean? I mean, you were our best player as a 17-year-old freshman. Like, that's the thing. You were young, right? Were you still 17 or you just turned 18 in August, right? Wasn't that how it went?
Yeah, end of October. So I started
October.
17-year-old.
So like Celebrini. Like Celebrini was a 17-year-old. Now for him, it was all season, a little bit different.
He was a true. Yeah. He won in a year earlier than I did.
Yeah. But still, I mean, it is important context to give with that. You know, and then Colin, you kind of roll forward, you get drafted, you come back. You know, I've said this a million times over and over again. You should have won the Hobey Baker. I one of our teammates, Jonny, won the
first year.
That year. Second year.
Oh, and Gilroy won it, right?
Yeah, Gilroy won it. The finalists for the trophy, though, were Colin, Gilroy, and a goaltender from Northeastern named Brad Thiessen.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know that name.
I mean, nobody was more dominant in college hockey that year. I mean, Matty had a more compelling story. He was a really good player. I'm not.
If we had Gilroy on, Colby would be saying, "You deserved it that year. You were great for us."
No. Colin knows the relationship with Gilroy it wasn't a good one for me. Oh, really? So I definitely wouldn't say that. And having sat on the Hobey Baker committee the last 3 or 4 years, I know the things that they're talking about, and I know exactly why Colin didn't get it, and it wasn't hockey related.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a. Would have been nobody talks about the losers, like in a sense, like I didn't win the Hobey Baker, so there's very few people who knew that I was a finalist, but still went on to have a good career. Never got too many awards like that in my career, so not a big deal.
How often does the championship game against Miami come up for you? Because I know for this asshole on the right, it comes up a lot because he had the overtime winning goal, and I know he loves to talk about it. But
I really don't. I disagree that I
come on. You send the picture like every month into our group chat with Vic.
That's such a lie. You're just lying. You can lie. That's fine, but that's not true.
Hey, if I scored a natty overtime winning goal, you wouldn't hear the end of it from me.
Yeah, especially when it was such a snipe.
I'm curious when people know or find out you were on that team, because I mean, looking back at it, it's the last championship BU has won, and it was the sickest college hockey game I've ever seen.
Yeah, doesn't come up too much in life. Just I'm not in the hockey world too much, so not so many people who would know a lot about it. But I mean, certainly when I played, it would come up, and my first couple years pro, people were talking about it. One of the guys in Nashville when I got there was a Miami, Ohio veteran, and I guess he texted all the guys with like 4 minutes left. I guess he texted all their phones, congrats, you guys, you guys did it. It was funny to hear that.
That's brutal.
Who was that, Willie?
Jones.
Okay.
I'm blanking on his first name right now, but I think he won the Hope. He was a finalist for the Hopi.
Martin Jones, the goaltender.
No, I really would have to look him up after.
Okay. All right. So no big deal. So anyways, yeah. So you're not involved in hockey anymore, really much at all. Now, let me ask you: is that something you ever think you'd go back to doing, like being involved in hockey, or do you have any interest still in the game of hockey? I mean, your interests obviously there's a wide net on things you're doing now.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I don't know. I would have to then watch hockey a lot, and I don't know if I want to do that. I enjoy it. Like I'm on NHL.com every single day. I love watching box scores, highlights. I get bored watching the game, and so that would be an issue. But I who knows, maybe I would find it fun to be like a commentary analyst, but then I would again have to watch more hockey, which I don't plan on doing.
You have your gear here with you in New York City or Jersey City? Sorry.
It's actually I have like my I have my Nashville bag, which has like my pants. It's actually sitting next to me, which is funny. My wife, for some odd reason, put them on.
No way.
Yeah. So I have that, but I mean, I haven't skated since I retired. So
I was gonna say, we gotta get you a pair of rollerblades. I actually have a playoff roller hockey game in Jersey City tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'll have to get you on a roller team. Roller is the best.
Would your hips and your groins and your hand, like, would that hold up to do any of that type of stuff?
They wouldn't. No. I would have skated. I honestly would skate if it weren't for that. Like I would enjoy like playing at Chelsea Pier or something like that.
Chelsea Pier is the best. Yeah. But are you doing like pickleball or padel or any shit like that, or you can't even move?
No, pretty much that. Yeah. No, I had the double hip surgeries that didn't take. Had to redo them, and I'm still. I don't know. I've gotten like recent MRIs that show I'm like missing quite a bit of cartilage. So, the sacrifices made playing hockey. So no, I can't do too much of that stuff now.
Yeah, damn. That's tough.
Well, Willie, I do want to ask you some stuff about the NHL. But before we kind of get into that stuff with Nashville and with Barry Trotz in particular, some of the questions that I had for you, I want to ask you and talk a little bit about the 2 articles that you wrote for the Players Tribune, because, look, those were really powerful articles. And, I've always been a guy who's really proud of my friend's success, whether it's you, when it's Shaddy, when it's Reamer, and when you guys were having a lot of success in the NHL. Like, I brag about you guys all the time. Like I do. I know that I do that. And as you know, like I'd come in the playoffs and watch playoff Willie play in Nashville and be jumping and screaming with Block in the stands. But you wrote those 2 articles, and a lot of people actually reached out to me when you wrote those articles because they know that, you and I are so close, and it's crazy the effect and the power behind the messaging in those 2 articles. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you wrote an article for the Players Tribune, right? And then a year later, kind of after Jimmy passed away, right? You wrote another one. And I would urge people to just Google Colin Wilson Players Tribune if you've never seen the story, but I'm curious from your perspective, like how difficult and what sort of inspired you to write those articles? Because the first one was good. The second one was really good and really deep and really honest. And I thought the messages were really powerful.
Yeah. First one I wrote, and I got a lot of help due to Robin Lehner writing his, and I was like, I really up until then was like, oh, I'm the only person in the league dealing with this type of stuff. So it was a bit of a pay it forward, bit of a, I don't know, I enjoy the communication kind of side of it. And at the same time, I mean, I had gone through a lot and just kind of wanted to put it out there. And, obviously that one, it's more around my obsessive compulsive disorder. And at the time that I wrote that, I actually, even though I had been to rehab and had been sober, I still, didn't want to combine that with the OCD, because I think the messaging would have been off, and like, it wouldn't have, again, I wanted to convey what actually was going on, and I think it would be difficult. But then, yeah, when Jimmy died, that was a lot more difficult, because it's already hard. Something, I don't know, still around addiction versus like, oh, me saying I have OCD, like addiction still has a bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to say stigma, and we like need to break the stigma, because I don't necessarily think it's, I'm not going to go that route. But yeah, no, I just recognized, that people needed to kind of understand what addiction was, and that was very hard for me to admit to everybody that I, in fact, was an addict, alcoholic, and to kind of go through the process of explaining it to people so that maybe they get there quicker. Because I don't know, the scary thing is, and this, I'll just speak, speak a little bit on Jimmy, what happened, I don't know, I felt like he could have gotten there quicker if he would have understood what addiction was. So I just kind of wanted to push along everybody a little bit further who might be going through that to, get help and get sober. Because the scariest time is like the year or two that you're kind of experimenting with sobriety, where you go back to the same dose and you die, or you hit a really hard bottom due to your addiction. So that was a little bit harder to get out.
And as far as the process goes of going through the Players Tribune, writing the article, reaching out to them, the communication with them, obviously the Players Tribune has become a very popular outlet for players to speak on what they want to talk about. But I don't know if anyone knows what necessarily goes into it. If you can explain how you connected with them maybe, or if they had reached out to you, like how does that work?
So I hit up Lehner, asked him, I think he went Players Tribune. He might have gone.
I think he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Well, so he went Players Tribune. So just asked him who helped him. And yeah, then you just kind of start going through the story with the writer, which, I helped edit it. But I mean, I actually wrote it initially and sent it to them. And I'm sure, especially looking back at my writing skills,
the grammar
was a bit like, okay. So let me take over this one. No, but it's a good process, and good to have somebody help convey it, and then at the same time, push back a little bit in different aspects of what you want the messaging to be.
And I know you're not as involved in hockey now, but I'm sure you're proud or have seen, a lot of players that do speak up during the season about, mental health, and even like take time away. A couple of players this year have, taken a game, 2 games a week, a month, months, away from their team just to get their mind right. Have you, maybe talked to any current guys that have done that, or is that something that you've seen that you're, maybe a trendsetter in some sort?
I think that I'm pretty impressed by guys who are willing to do it while they play. I waited until I retired, or I guess that's kind of when things blew up on me anyways. But no, I've spoken to a few guys here and there. Connor, I mean, I'll mention Connor Ingram because I'm pretty sure he's mentioned me before, speaking with him because he has OCD. And he's a very funny guy, so it's been good.
He's got a good Twitter.
He's got a good Twiry. He's good on Twitter.
Yeah, he tweets a lot.
Yeah, he's a funny, dry, humored human being, which sits well with me.
Well, and I think that I just think it's so powerful for guys to see somebody who had so much success be so open with their struggle. And look, I remember when you wrote that article, and I kind of remember talking with some of our closest friends, obviously knew there were moments of struggle, but had no idea how, you internalized it so well. You never, it's not like you said, I need, I had no idea. I mean, I knew more about the OCD a little bit, and I know we had partied together and we had done things together, but you didn't, it's not like you were showing it. And so for you to take the steps as successful as you were, like, I think it's more powerful than when a random person does it. Not saying that that's not important too, but there is a lot of weight behind it.
Yeah, it seems to be. I think just a lot of athletes coming forward and talking about it. I mean, again, like I got more help due to Robin Lehner talking about it, so I'm sure other people have gotten help, and seems to have opened up, a lot of doors. And I hope it leads to getting help before you need it, in a sense of like, guys have to take some time off, do that. But I feel like getting regimented, and I've spoken to quite a few players now who do just do therapy quite a bit, or do different ways, do different things to help them before the season starts. And that way, they're more prepared and life goes a little bit more smoothly. So, pretty interesting. The power that athletics seem to have in society.
And I'm curious, and Colby, I don't know if you wanted to stay on this topic, but I wanted to like kind of lead into NHL, because when you started your NHL career in Nashville, granted, I was only like 13 or 14 years old at the time in 2010, 2011, but I feel like Nashville then wasn't Nashville now. And Nashville, that city is like, you talk to anybody, where do you want to go party for a weekend right now in the States? It's like Nashville or like Austin, Texas, right? Like those are the two that have really blown up, I feel like. But, your days early on in Nashville, what was it like then? I mean, now I feel like everyone is aware of it, but, your rookie year, maybe your first couple of years in the NHL, I don't know if people necessarily knew how incredible that city was.
No, we used to have, after games, we would all have to pack up quickly and head to the Cheesecake Factory, because it was the only restaurant that would like stay open.
No way.
On the time. Yeah, we were all like going to the Cheesecake Factory in this Green Hills, which is now incredibly developed. But no, it's crazy. I mean, I've gone back a few times. Like I went and saw Tyson Barrie when he was playing there. Visited him, and you just don't even recognize the city. How much is being built around it, how different it is. I mean, even when I started, the first couple months of the season, we'd have to wait for football season to end before, fans would really start coming in. And so like, the fans getting around the team, especially during that cup run the one year, seemed to actually coincide with the buildup of the city of Nashville. But no, it is a crazy place. I mean, Broadway seems to be, it really seems, we always called it Nash Vegas, but it honestly has turned into a Las Vegas hybrid. So pretty wild.
It's Vegas without the gambling, like different energy, because it's not all clubs, but it's an incredibly fun place. I'm glad you brought up Tyson Barrie, because he gave one of the most epic speeches I've ever heard at your wedding. Like, I mean, I had tears dripping down my face from laughing so hard for like 4 or 5 straight minutes as Tyson Barrie just absolutely roasted you and Shaddy. I mean, it was. You
didn't get roasted?
He didn't come for me, no. Well, Shaddy spoke right before Tyson, so I think he kind of had him like right in his rear view. But like, I think Tyson Barrie could probably do stand-up comedy. I mean, I really do. Like, he was hysterical in his speech.
Yeah, he did. Him and Shaddy both like rounded out the speeches pretty well. They were the last two, and yeah, just to go ahead and just rip on. Well, I guess mostly me for like a duration, which was what I wanted.
Took some shots at Carey. Took a couple there. There was a couple shots at your dad and some other players in the room, but boy, they unloaded on you so good.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, that's again exactly what I wanted in Tyson. I've been to his bachelor party, his wedding, been to weddings where he's emceed, and I knew that he goes pretty hard. I mean, he texted me when I asked him. He's like, on a scale of like 1 to 10, how hard can I go at you? And I said 8, and he's like, okay, I can work with that. So some really, really, really good jokes. I appreciate Shaddy leading off with me being cheap. I found that quite funny.
No, well, I'm surprised he hasn't signed yet, to be honest, Tyson Barrie. Like, I really am surprised at the way that it's kind of gone the last couple of years for him, because I still think he's got game, and he's a guy that everybody loves being around. I mean, it is a little bit surprising to me that he hasn't signed. But as we're kind of talking about the NHL, and you brought up Nashville. So Colin, let me ask you this. You had Barry Trotz as a coach in Nashville, and I know you guys had an interesting relationship, and you're like laughing a little bit because I remember you used to tell me some of the exchanges that you guys had, especially early on in your time there. Are you surprised that he's a general manager now? And seemingly the way, I mean, if you followed it, I mean, he went out this summer and had swung for the fences in free agency with Stamkos and Shea and Marchessault. And I mean, like they're spending and like, does any of this stuff surprise you, or are you kind of like, yeah, I could see it?
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that he's a GM. I mean, that seems to be how it works, right? I mean, he was a head coach for a very long time, gained a lot of experience. And and obviously the ownership of Nashville decently well, so that they felt comfortable with him taking over, Poile retiring. So yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it seems as though unless you're a former player, to become a GM or a coach is basically you move up the ranking from scout. You know, you're one type of scout, then you're next type of scout, then you're an assistant coach, and so on. So I don't know about that trajectory. Trotzy, I guess would be, yeah, he's a player's coach, and he won a cup and coached longer in the NHL than I ever will. So he is a very nice human being. So one of the best, and I'm sure that helped him climb the ranks to where he is.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different things, I could ask you about Nashville, and it's funny because Barry Trotz actually out here on Long Island is like known as a legend because he brought the Islanders to back-to-back conference finals, and the Islanders haven't been the same since. But something I'm curious about too, which I feel like I haven't really heard many players talk about, was the day that Shea Weber was traded for PK Subban. Like that must have been wild in that organization. You were a player on the team when it happened, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What, like, I don't know if you guys even had, what's up?
Horribly shocking.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when that trade goes down, like, at the time, Twitter is like whatever. I don't know if you're finding out about trades on Twitter yet or the network. Like, how'd you find out about that trade, and what was the reaction from the guys on the team when that went down? Because he was your captain at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Neeler texted me, but I mean, okay, I can still give
my buddy.
Yeah. I'll give slight. I guess in hindsight, though, like, I mean, Webby a year or two before had signed like the offer sheet, so that, who knows if that like soured the relationship a little bit. But regardless, I mean, like, yeah, Webby's an incredible human being and an incredible leader. So it was very, very shocking that he got traded. I mean, he was like, you call it old school, but he was like, what, 6 or 7 years ago that he was, a defenseman who played both sides of the puck and was a hard-nosed guy who had an incredibly hard shot. So, I mean, any D-men coming out of that year, those years, which were a lot of top D-men, he really helped mold. And yeah, I mean, like him and Yossi and Ekholm and Jones, Ellis, like, I mean, their relationship was like funny to watch. Mm-hmm. He was really all their dads. So yeah, very shocking. And then, yeah, we got to PK, and PK's
personality, I feel like he comes right in, and it's just like, it's got to be a completely different, kind of vibe.
Yeah, he took his, he like went into a Titans game, and I guess he did, there's something, I forgot what they do. They like put a knife in the ground or something at the middle, and he like ripped off his tarp during it. Nobody asked him to, and he started like putting water all over himself.
Before he even played a game for the Preds?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was funny because Laviolette put it up on the screen before our video sessions.
No way.
Oh, no way. Yeah. Were the guys just like rolling over or what?
Yeah, it was good. Lavi was good with like that. So it was a funny, slight culture change in that regard.
That was something I wanted to ask too, because I cover the Rangers right now, and I grew up a huge Rangers fan. So obviously a Laviolette question was bound to happen for me, but he always has success, it seems like, early on, whenever he takes over a new team. It's this year with the Rangers, with you guys, what was it like just playing for him? Because I feel like he's and maybe this is just me saying it because, the year the Rangers had, but he seems like a very family-oriented, team-building kind of coach that might be overlooked just because he's more old school in that sense of coaching.
Yeah, the Labby bump is a real thing. He brings an infectious energy. I mean, it's very motivating. Like it was very cool. He had like a theme of every single game. He like had a specific theme where he'd be talking about something, or like he would have prizes for most shots on net when he's quite into Corsi, or at least he was at that time.
Mhm.
But no, it's real, the energy that he brings. And yes, seems to bring that family oriented, lots of team bonding. There's actually we had to make a music video one year. Like he had it for, we're gonna do team bonding.
You guys have to make a music video?
Yeah, and it's if anybody can get their hands on it,
Yeah.
it's actually the editing at the end, because what it ended up turning into, like, everybody just got absolutely hammered. And I think, and I can only speak on speculation, but I think Poyle looked at him a little upset.
This is the full team doing a video, or like a contest within the team?
Like the whole team, wives and girlfriends, everybody. Like they brought us to like a roof deck in Nashville, and they're like, okay, we're gonna start filming, but like everybody just got so lit up.
Oh, we have to find this. Yeah, we have to.
Yeah. Well,
and Poyle's such a reserved guy. Like seems like he would be the way other end of the spectrum with that type of thing.
Lavy or Poyle?
Poyle.
Yes, he would be on the other end. I literally will never forget it. I could, like, all of a sudden, at one point, I was like, I wonder what Poyle thinks of this. Yeah, you could see he was a little upset there.
Was it like the Harlem Shake video? I remember that was a big thing.
Oh my God, yeah, that was definitely part of it. Yeah, that's in the music video. Some of that plays. So
that's so funny. Yeah, that's good shit.
Well, look, Willie, I think, you gave us 40 minutes of your time. I know you've got a busy day of class. Appreciate you jumping on with us last second.
I got one more if I can, Colby.
I'll just tell you this before we go. I'll get a little bit sappy. For me, like, my career, when I no longer had you as a teammate, went the wrong way. So I think a lot of, when you look at my success as a college hockey player, I think I owe a lot of it to passes from you. I think my numbers were way inflated because of you, but my favorite thing to date that you and I have done, and we've done some bizarre shit together that we're not going to talk about on this show. The best thing we've now done to date is when our daughters were together on their first birthdays, and being able to do that shit together. I mean, that's my favorite thing, and seeing you with August and all that stuff. I know it's, I'm being sappy about it, but it is by far and above my most favorite thing. So Johnny's got one more question, but I love you, bud. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being open about all that stuff. People should go read that Players Tribune article, really both of them, if you have the time to do it. I know some of our readers our listeners probably have already read that stuff, but it's a great story, and to see what you're doing now, to see where you're at in life it's amazing, and it's awesome. So go ahead, Johnny, ask your last question, and then we'll say bye to our pal Colin.
And again, thank you for the time. And I promise this actually isn't a dumb one. Usually I finish our interviews with a stupid question, but
Charlie McAvoy roasted him 2 weeks ago, Willie, because he asked him such a stupid question.
I'm still gonna have to apologize to Charlie for that. He's actually a friend of mine, and I feel like I tarnished our relationship with that question. But I'll have to give him a hug when I see him. But we spent this whole time talking about Nashville, and I was actually a teammate of Cale Makar's at UMass. And that day, Cale comes into Colorado, scores a goal in his first playoff game, and I've seen the clip of Nate McKinnon saying, like, yeah, we drafted this kid from the fucking AJHL. Like, we had no idea what he was gonna be. Can you just talk about, like, your first impression of Cale Makar? Because we're now talking about a guy who might be the best defenseman of all time when his career is said and done.
He already is the best.
He already is.
It's incredible. His first so after the first period, and it was playoffs, McKinnon and I came in and we looked at him and then looked at each other, and we both started, like, dying laughing. Because we were like, what the fuck? What is this? Because he probably only had 4 or 5 shifts, but in the 4 or 5 shifts, you were just like, oh my, like, this is an incredible talent. You could see it immediately. So it was so cool. I mean, it's so cool that I got to play and watch him. And I don't know. It's funny that I thought I was giving hot takes. Like, I ended up I played that season with him. But like after I retired, I'm like, dude, you're like my favorite player. Like
You're my favorite player.
I'm like, you're so good. And then sure enough, like within the year, everybody's saying he's incredible. But no, it's really can't speak enough of it. And the fact that I got to play with him and McKinnon, I mean, and a bunch of like very good players. Mikko is obviously incredible too, and Landy.
Mm-hmm.
But the talent is just insane.
Honestly, you know what I just thought of, and not because you like kind of I'm not saying you like resemble him a little bit, but that took me to like the scene in Like Mike when Dirk Nowitzki asked for his autograph. Have you seen Like Mike? Come on.
Yeah.
I know the movie.
Dirk like walks over to their locker room and asks, like, I think it's Calvin Cambridge was the name of the movie, and asked for his autograph. Like that kind of reminds me of that. That's so funny. You're my favorite player.
So good, man. So good.
That's hilarious. That's all I wanted to ask because
it's good. Honestly, I'm glad you asked that question because we didn't talk about Colorado at all, and on our show through the season, we talk about McKinnon and Makar all the time because look. They're two of the best players in the NHL. And we always say, like, we debate. It's like, if you have the first overall pick and a redraft, are you taking McDavid or are you taking Makar? And I think it's philosophy based. I mean, McDavid is obviously like ridiculous, but Makar is pretty ridiculous too. Like it's a hard one.
Makar is McDavid on defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's the same. And that's not to take away. Yeah. I mean, McKinnon's right there too, and
yeah, he is.
But McDavid can't win the big one.
What's that?
McDavid can't win the big one.
Yeah.
Hey, those other guys have a cup.
Just kidding, by the way.
Yes.
Come at me.
Yeah. He's got to win one. He does need to win one. I mean, he's obviously the best forward, but it just comes down to philosophy. If you want to start with the number one forward or defenseman, that's personal preference. But I agree, Colin. You're talking about the two best players on the planet. And then, Nate's probably like the smallest, slightest hair behind, but barely.
Mm-hmm. I'll give them both the best way to describe. They're both 1A. They're both 1A, and then Nate's 1B. I wonder if he ever listens to this and I'll get a text from him or something. But he's...
Well, we're going to have to clip that and make sure that gets on Daily Faceoff's social media. So he might see it. And guys do reach out, like when we say certain things, because Daily Faceoff's social media platforms have a pretty good reach. So I've gotten some shit from guys last season about things that mostly Jonny said.
Yep. We'll see a pic of Nate McKinnon with the iPad like Michael Jordan. I took that personally and go off this.
Yes.
It's mostly just guys texting me about Johnny's behavior in the Rangers locker room, sitting in guys' stalls and so on and so forth. But anyways, enjoy class today. What are you, 2 to 9 in class today? 2
to 9. It sucks.
Holy shit.
The late one today. So
that's a late one, and then you're up early tomorrow morning with August. So at least
Every
you got
morning.
that. Yep. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for doing this. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah, that was a great conversation with Colin Wilson, who doesn't do a lot of interviews, right? It's since Colin retired, he hasn't done a ton of media, done a ton of interviews, not because people haven't wanted him to. He just doesn't really want to be in the limelight at all. Mm-hmm. But good to get him on. I mean, look, Colin is such a big part of my life, Jonny.
Seems like the chillest guy ever.
Such a chill guy.
Yeah.
He's he kind of has like hippie chill energy, which is why his wedding was at Woodstock, but the thing that's really interesting about Colin is he's, people don't realize because he's a little bit aloof. He's a really bright and intelligent guy. Like things that he's really passionate about, as we learned about in the interview with all the schooling that he's been doing. He goes all in and he really wants to learn and understand these things. And so, he kind of got through those struggles. I'll tell you this, and I can tell you this because I was with all these guys at the certain time, but going back to our late teenage years, right? Colin, myself, Shattenkirk, Kane, Van Riemsdyk, like all the guys that were kind of my draft year guys at the U.S. national team with us, in and around those years. Colin, if not for all the hip and groin injuries and hamstring problems he had, like I personally think his level of talent was Hall of Fame level talent. Like when you watch what Colin did in playoffs, when he basically would say, shoot me up with cortisone, I'll just live with the pain. He would dominate in playoffs every year. He would be sleepy at times during the regular season. We heard about his, things like, look, he was fucked up a lot during the regular season. Like, he was dealing with so many issues, anxiety, amongst other things during regular seasons. And then in playoffs, for whatever reason, he would just kind of leave it at the door. And he was so dominant. But from a talent standpoint, Jonny, he's one of the most talented players I've ever been on the ice with. No joke. He is powerful. He's got tons of hockey IQ, vision. Like, he was a special player. That's why he went 7th overall and went right to the National Hockey League as an 18-year-old. But injuries and other things, like we learned about, really got in the way of him being a Hall of Famer. He still had a good career, no doubt. But like, he had the potential to have a massive career because of how good he was.
Yeah, I remember watching him like when I was younger, and he had the tying goal in that national championship game, right? Didn't he have the goal where Gilroy made the play?
No, that was Bonino, Nick Bonino.
Oh, Bonino?
Yeah, he was on the ice, but look, in the Frozen Four, he dominated. Like, he had like 3 or 4 points against Vermont in this national semifinal, and he was just a absolute beast in the finals. Like, he was the best player in college hockey that year. Again, no disrespect to Matt Gilroy, who won the Hobey Baker as a 25-year-old versus Colin Wilson, the 19-year-old. It really wasn't like, Colin was by far the most dominant player. He just was, right? So it was good to catch up with him. I love him to death. He's one of my best friends in the world. We talked about his wedding a couple weeks ago, obviously, on here. It was great to speak with him. But good to see him put his face back out in front of the hockey community, and maybe we'll try to drag him on more about certain things throughout the season. So it's a great interview, and it was good to talk with him.
Yeah, maybe I'll bother him and try to hit him up and hang out with him in New York, and he'll just ignore me and pretend I don't exist like everybody else.
Well, he lives in Jersey City, and his wife is trying to actually get him to move out to like where we live. So,
oh, really?
And I'm obviously promoting that big time.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long he lasts out in that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to give a quick shout out. Well, thank you again for getting Colin on, but just want to give a quick shout out to another one of our sponsors, a new sponsor, Fountain Tire. Yep. You and your family's safety is important. Fountain Tire specializes in tire and auto service, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service, because Fountain Tire, they do both. They'll treat your vehicle like it's your vehicle. If you need new tires, or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop into Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. Right now, Fountain Tire has a great deal going on, so save up to 25% off select tires, including Goodyear, until October 10th. Plus, save $50 more on any service of over $150. Some restrictions will apply, but stop into Fountain Tire or make an appointment. Check out fountaintire.com. So we love our new sponsor, Fountain Tire. And with that, we're going to talk about some new NHL jerseys that have had a lot of mixed and different opinions. The Anaheim Ducks have their new bright orange, Duck logo, the original Duck logo uniform is a picture of Cutter Gauthier at the rookie showcase. And the Utah Hockey Club New jerseys have gotten some mixed reviews. I feel like, in the unpopular opinion for both these jerseys, I despise the new Ducks jerseys, and I actually love the Utah jerseys. For me, like, that bright orange, I think it's just too much. I loved Anaheim's purple scheme, like back in the day.
Can you do us a favor? Go back to the Anaheim jersey as he's talking about that.
I know people have loved these bright orange ones, and I'll shout out a friend of mine, Pete Blackburn is one of them, who's like raved about these uniforms. And
I think, listen,
it's just not for me.
I love the logo. It maybe is
the logo is great,
Jonny. It might be my favorite logo, like non-original 6 logo in the National Hockey League, because it there's so much remnants to our childhood with that logo, Mighty Ducks, and the show that used, obviously there was the movies, but then there was like Darkwing Duck and the little hockey cartoons as like we were growing up, which was unbelievable. The orange is awful. It's terrible. I mean, like, it's god awful. It reminds me of like the Thursday night uniforms in the NFL, which usually
the color rush or whatever it's called. Yeah.
I don't like them whatsoever. They took a great logo and they fucked it up, in my opinion, with that color scheme. So that's disappointing. And here's what I'll say about Utah. I really truly enjoy and love the color scheme.
Yeah, the color
The
scheme's amazing.
jerseys are fine. Like, they're fine. They don't bother me. So I'll be really truly intrigued to see when they eventually get a team name. Look, I have no problem with the fact that they didn't rush their branding. I really didn't. I don't have a problem with that. You only get one opportunity to do that. So I really do like the color scheme. I think the light blue and the dark blue is like
So
one of my
sick.
favorite color schemes. I like the color blue, and then you throw the black in there, and it's
Mhm.
really, really cool. The actual way the Utah, like, it's fine. It's not horrible.
Well, I
but
feel like the full getup looks sick. Like,
yeah,
I saw the
again,
pictures
I
of them
think
in the
that
blacks.
it's the color scheme, I think, that is
Mhm.
really cool. It's not, to me, necessarily the actual look of Utah, and like, it's just like, it looks a little bit like, oh, we're a Bantam team, or like we're like a Utah State high school team at the Little League World Series, like wearing our Utah jerseys. Like, to me, that's kind of what that looks like. But I'm with you on color. I think
Yeah.
anytime you take light blue and black, or light blue and dark blue, like, and you have those little shadows, and like, I think that's always a home run. And in any sports team, the light blue, dark
Carolina
blue, black,
Panthers.
or North Carolina, they've
Yeah.
got that. They wear those dark blue jerseys or those black jerseys sometimes
Mhm.
with the light blue. Like, that looks amazing, right? In any sport they play, that looks amazing. So I'm with you on color. I'm not with you on thinking it's amazing all around. I just think it's fine. But if their eventual full-time uniforms, Jonny, have that color scheme, you probably can't go that wrong,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I agree. I thought Carolina Panthers right away, and I would love, 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 love if they made like a third jersey that was mainly in that light blue color with like the black and white stripes. Like, I think
Yeah.
that'd be sick.
And I'm sure they'll get to that, like,
Mhm.
you don't want to like, you don't want to empty the chamber on round one, right? Leave some stuff to be desired, give the fans an opportunity to grow into some stuff. So
Yeah.
that's all we got for today, Jonny. Again, last week was a busy week. We talked to 3 different people. Here's what I will tell you. Make sure you put an automatic download on, or a reminder for next week's episode, which will come out on the 18th with Tony Granato. This guy has done it all. He has done it absolutely all. He's coached, he's played. A lot of Gretzky stories, a lot of LA stories. Some interesting stories from coaching the Olympics. Like, he just has this like wide net. We started the interview off like sappy, probably. Tony is like, I told Jonny this. Tony Granato to me is a Mount Rushmore type of person.
Mhm.
I've talked on this show before about how good guys like Jeremy Roenick were to me when I met them when I was a young player. Mark Recchi, who I got to be teammates with. Like, I've told you about some of these legends that are just the most unreal people. Now, I met Tony in a different light. He was the head coach of the Avs when I was drafted. But man, the little things along the way that he did that affected my life in such a big way, there are things that I'll never forget. So when I get an opportunity to talk to them and talk about it, I love to. I really want to, because it's just so meaningful. And so this was a really fun interview. Not only did we spend an hour with them, after the show ended, we sat with
Yeah.
them for another 30 minutes and talked hockey. He loves this freaking game of hockey, does he not?
No, he does. I mean, it was my second interaction with him, and he just, like, I only met him one time, and it was over the computer when I did like an NHL Network hit, and he made me feel like we've known each other for a long time, right? Like, I think that's the best kind of person that just kind of welcomes you in no matter what. So I really enjoyed talking to him, and I feel like we're kind of, hyping this episode up a lot. I'd love for people to listen to it and then give their opinions, right? Like, before we kind of break down the whole interview.
I don't care if we gas it up. People are going to love this interview. So
Yeah.
again, set a reminder, put automatic downloads on podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a YouTuber, get your reminder for the 18th. Let us know what you thought of today's episode. Leave comments, leave likes, let us know. We'll be live in 3 weeks. All right. We'll be back on our 9 a.m. live schedule. We'll be back with all you with our chat. There'll be lots to talk about, lots of divisional previews. We still haven't told you the player that's going to be joining us every week all season. We have not given you that name yet, but as we get close to October, we will let you know. That is a big deal for this show, and that's going to be a lot of fun to have him joining us once a week. I think that's all we got for today. Yep. Vic, good job. As always, you're going to have to do some editing today, splicing in and out with our interview that we recorded last week, but I know you're up to it. And we'll see everybody next Wednesday. Well, actually, you'll see me on the interview pre-recorded. You'll get a little update from Jonny. I will be away. Next time I see you guys will be 2 weeks.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.